Welcome back, this is Cereal Snacks. Today I'm looking at Guild Wars 2, World vs. World. You can see that I've entered the World vs. World battleground at Sorrow's Furnace Hill, and I'm headed towards Stone Mist Castle, where the bulk of the battle is taking place. Now I'm going to jump right into the action here, because that's what this is all about. But as I get towards this castle, I'm also going to talk a little bit about the game and how World vs. World works. This is actually World vs. World vs. World. So there's 3 separate servers that are fighting each other in this battleground. Our particular server, Sorrow's Furnace, is locked in battle with Anvil Keep, I believe it's called, which is actually taking over our main keep, and we're trying to get it back. So you can see I'm running into battle here. Now, World vs. World vs. World is really a unique concept. It reminds me a lot of Dark Age of Camelot because of their realm versus realm versus realm. So it has remnants of that. And you can see there's NPCs that we're fighting here, a scout and an archer that are outside the base. And here's some of I'll go over some of the mechanics of World vs. World. If you look, there's our keep, and you can see the red portal in the distance. That means that the keep has been taken, and then that red portal only allows those players who are red to enter. Now the gate is actually busted open right here. We actually broke through this gate, and our goal really is to get into that keep and retake it for our own. Now, that sounds like it might not be too difficult of a task, but in this game, you can't just run to a flag like you can in games like World of Warcraft. You really are stopped by large groups of other players, and you actually have to continue to push up through there. And you can see that I'm actually getting close to another battle that's taking place. The green names are my server, Sorrow's Furnace, and we are trying to take down this gate to get into the inner courtyard of the keep. And you can see the gate health there at the top. Really what you can do in this World vs. World is attack those gates, bring the health down, and then it busts the gate open and allows you to get inside the keep to continue your advance. And so, like I was saying before, the red portal is there, and it prevents you from getting in. Now, the other thing I want to mention is that there's actually a battering ram at the gate, and you can bring supply, and you can see my supply is 0 right now. I was not smart enough to bring supply. You can bring supply and buff up that catapult, build catapults, and knock down these gates. So that's one method. You can there's actually siege weapons of all types. There's the catapults, there's arrow carts, there's trebuchets, and all those things help you. Now we've busted into this inner courtyard, and we're fighting the guard here. Now I edited a little bit there because we had a really major battle here at this entryway into the center of the keep, and ultimately this is kind of a narrow corridor that is allowing the enemy to block us from going inside. This is where we kind of were stalled for a while, and we're just kind of massing at this entrance and fighting at this Stone Mist Castle. Now the neat part about this battle is you can see somebody is actually building a siege weapon there on the right, so it's neat to see all those different aspects. The enemy doesn't have them up there, but they could have trebuchets up on the top roof, catapults, and that sort of thing that you can fire down on the people below. Now another mechanic of World vs. World that is interesting to note is that these supplies that you use to build catapults and that sort of thing are really required to allow you to succeed. And what we started to quickly figure out is that those supplies that were coming from the north part of the map to help these red players from Anvil Rock were causing us to not be able to really do any more advancing, because they just kept rebuilding and buffing up their equipment and their gates and that sort of thing. So we decided that the best option was to try to get around to the north side of the keep to stifle that supply flow. You can actually see a character standing next to me, Kilgane from Ars Technica, who's also in my guild, and who's somebody that the Ars Technica crew has been playing with. And so we kind of decided, let's just get around to the north, and you can see we're kind of fighting our way around the base. Kind of slow going, and that's one thing that's really neat about this game. You don't die quickly, but you also don't kill your opponents quickly. So it's kind of a two-edged sword there, and you just have to deal with the fact that it's going to take a lot of time to succeed in whatever you do, and a lot of times you're going to need a lot of people to do it. There's just a lot of strategy involved, which I really like. It's not as straightforward as other PvP and other games, and this is like the bread and butter of Guild Wars. It's like what I'm learning quickly, even though I never did play the first game. So you can see we're just fighting our way around. You can see my illusion there. You can see actually another player that looks just like me. That's actually my illusion because I'm playing a mesmer. And the mesmer creates illusions as you fight. You can have up to 3, and then you can, do multiple things with those illusions once they're created. You can make them explode for damage, or you can make them do sort of. So it really helped me out. And I edited a little bit here. We're starting to run up north. You can see Killgain right ahead of me. We're running up north to a keep called Ogre-Watch Cut. And Ogre-Watch Cut is a base right to the north. It helps get those supplies to the enemy. And it was under attack at the time, and we figured, well, we're not getting anywhere in the keep, or the Stone Mist Castle, so we need to do something a little bit different. So we're sticking with this group of other players, and we actually run up upon a bunch of Anvil Rock invaders who are kind of situated in this narrow pass. And because of that, long story short, we don't do too well. So this was we had a couple epic battles. This is one of them where we more or less got routed, had to run away, and do the old Monty Python runaway thing because we just could not hold it against the great numbers that they had. It looked like we're doing pretty well right here. Oh yeah, we're doing great. Let's advance some more. Let's see what we can do. But it doesn't turn out quite that well. Now another thing about World versus World is that your team continues to rack up points. And one thing that we found is even though the Anvil Rock invaders were holding our Stone Mist Castle, we had the majority of the map. So we actually continued to rack up points and score, even though we really weren't controlling our main keep, which was an interesting thing to note. If you have control of the majority of the map, but you don't have your main base, that's okay. And in many ways, it's good to keep them occupied at that main base because then they can't go anywhere else on the map, and skirmishes like this just cause them to separate their forces even more. So you can see I'm kind of running around, not exactly knowing exactly what to do. I was only level 6. Of course, that's another mechanic of World versus World is that they level you up to level 80, and that then makes you basically equivalent to everybody else on the playing field. However, I say equivalent, but I must put a clause on that because you're not really equivalent. your equipment is still level 7 type gear. You're still 11-7 type skills. So you don't have a lot of the tools in your toolbox that you might have at level 80 or even at level 30 or higher than I was. So it makes me a little bit less useful on the battlefield than probably some of my teammates that I was playing with. So really the ultimate outcome of this battle is that we're doing pretty well. We're kind of distracting the opponent up here in the north with our small group, just because the Stone Mist Castle at this point is so overwhelmed and they've got so much supply. We thought this would really help stop that supply, and this was our one shot to kind of stop that supply line, those pack mules, from bringing their supplies down into the castle and really keep us from being able to get our castle back. So you can see Killgain again there, standing there with me, and we're just kind of doing our thing. And this is where things got a little hairy. We tried to go across this bridge, which was probably a mistake because that gets really deep into Anvil Rock territory. This fight to survive mechanic is a neat Guild Wars mechanic. It allows you to, even though you have lost all your health, you have this option to actually revive yourself, and people can revive you. And it's just a neat mechanic because you can have a chance of coming back to life if you die. Now, so finally we decided, all right, let's go back to Stone Mist Castle. Let's help out. We're obviously not doing any good breaking the supply lines. And what we found happened was that we were actually able to surround the castle in such a fashion that they weren't able to block us in these narrow corridors. So we actually got into the center of the castle, pretty excited because we're in here in the middle. And one thing that a lot of us didn't know is, because we had never played World versus World before, is where do you go once you're in the keep to actually take the keep? So you see a lot of people kind of milling about here in the center part of the keep down below. I was curious of this Heart of Stone skill challenge, but it has nothing to do with taking the keep apparently. So you'll soon find that we discovered that it's actually the ramp leading up to the keep. So your second stage of taking this keep is really to get up into the upper portion of the keep, up a ramp. And so those of us who are in the center here finally start to figure it out. You can see the people massing on the ramp behind me. You probably, if you caught it real quickly. So our tactic became, okay, well, we're gonna have to. You can see Anvil Rock invaders coming in from the north side of the keep, trying to, flank us basically because we're going up that corridor. So there's Anvil Rock attackers up on the top of the ramp, and then there's Anvil Rock attackers coming in from the sides. Pretty epic battle at this point. We almost had it. We're going up that ramp. You can see the group going up the ramp on the right there. And of course, I'm not very helpful because I'm standing here in the middle. I should have been up on the ramp. And finally, I figured it out and started to make my way that direction. I guess in a way it's good because I was helping to flank us from the rear, but not as important probably as moving forward. You can see an arrow cart there on the right. That's kind of neat. He's shooting off, and those things are very powerful. You don't want to get in the area effect of the arrow cart. So I started to make myself up the ramp thinking that I had plenty of reinforcements to back me up. And this is where things kind of went south. Got up the ramp and realized that I was completely surrounded by Anvil Rock invaders all by myself, and that was it for me. Needless to say, we never took the ramp. We never took the castle back that night. We fell back even to the corridor, and finally they were able to put back the door. And when I logged off, we had almost given up on Stone Mist Castle. So not all battles end in victory. However, sometimes the battle must be lost to win the war. And we still came out on top in points that night of the 3 World versus World. So thank you for joining me. I hope you learned something about World versus World and that you come join me and play in Guild Wars 2. Thanks for joining me.